Okay, hello. After seeing some seemingly misconceptions and comments on my top 10 worst aging video, I've decided to do a similar list on units who were already aged the moment they released, or were just mid to downright terrible on release, which I classify as different than units who were good but aged out of the meta quickly, like the pre-EZA Blue Fusions for example. Please note that these lists are carefully calculated through an intense algorithm. And let's go. Now, right away, coming in at number 10, we have Tech Super Trunks. Tech Super Trunks led the Master Evolution and Android Cell Saga categories for 3 key, 170, and he gave the full 200% to Rapid Growth and Warriors Raised on Earth, Earthbred Fighters. He's got a decent super attack effect, which gives him 30% attack and defense for the turn. He gets 2 key, 150% attack and defense start of turn, 100% attack and defense, an additional normal with a 70% chance of it being a super attack, and a 50% chance to guard when there's 3 or more Android Cell Saga allies on the team. That's the main relevant part of his base form. His transformation condition is that it can be activated the turn after performing 5 or more attacks in battle, or turn 5 when there's an enemy whose name includes Cell. So essentially, the soonest you could possibly get this is turn 5. Now, once he does transform, he is uber busted. His super attack effect gives him 30% attack and defense for the turn and makes all his attacks for the turn become crits. He gets 4 key, 300% attack and defense start of turn, gets a guaranteed additional super attack and guaranteed guard for 3 turns, gets up to 200% attack and defense. With the more HP you have, the more of a boost you get, and he also gets 100% attack and defense on super attack via his passive. His active skill condition is that it can be activated when HP is 60% or above, or when there's a cell enemy, and if you're transformed, it will do guaranteed crits for the turn, do some solid damage, some pretty good damage honestly, and then will pop a Ghost Usher. He's got solid links, and he's on a decent amount of categories, but the amount of categories doesn't really matter because he's restricted to Android/Cell Saga. But essentially, why Trunks finds himself on this list is because he needs 3 or more Android/Cell Saga category allies on the team to get his guard and extra attack and defense in base. And even with that stat boost and the guard, he still sucks. If he gets touched in base, you kinda just die. And especially if you don't have the guard, you're just dead. One touch from a boss within the last 2 years and you're just gone. His base form is just very horrible. Like, it's actually terrible. But his transformation is very, very good. But honestly, I mean, like, good luck getting to it because he's guard or die. And honestly, if he does guard, he probably still will just die. If you can transform and get his Ghost Usher going and his damage popping, like, he will be uber powerful, very strong. But realistically, that's just not going to happen. It also doesn't help that when this guy released, Android/Cell Saga wasn't a good team yet. And honestly, I mean, it's not really great, but at least it got Future Gohan during the worldwide download celebration, which helped him a lot. Not to mention, in Future Gohan also got his EZA, who was also pretty solid for him. But that's Tech Super Trunks. He's going to come in at number 10, moving on to number 9. Now, coming in at number 9 is Carnival LR Omega Shenron. Being a 200% leader skill for GT bosses and having some solid super attack effects. He gives himself 30% defense, lowers attack, and has a 50% chance to stun on 12 key. And then he also seals, has a 50% defensive buff, and lowers attack and defense on his 18 key. His passive skill gives him the ability to pseudo Rainbow Orb Change, which is okay, I guess. I don't know why it's restricted to just int key spheres, but hey, pop off, I guess. He permanently debuffs all enemies for 25% attack and defense. Not super relevant, but hey, I guess. He gets 3 key, 200% attack and defense start of turn, gets 20% attack per attack performed, up to 150%, gets 1 key and 5% damage reduction per GT boss's category ally on team, and he gets an additional 7% damage reduction per rainbow key sphere obtained. If you enter the turn 50% or below, he has a revive, and when you pop his revival skill, he becomes super effective against all types and gets an additional guaranteed super attack. His active skill condition can be activated once 3 or more turns have elapsed from start of battle, and the enemy is debuffed via attack or defense down, or turn 6+. He's got a good link set, but the reason he finds himself on this list is because GT Boss is an absolute zero. STR Super 17, who just barely missed this list by the way, was a solid unit, but not as good as they should have been. And overall, GT Bosses just wasn't a competent team that could take down events like Int Omega Shenron, Red Zone Merge Zamasu, and the other hard, difficult fights at the time. Metal Cooler Core of the Red Zone, you know how. It's rather unfortunate because Omega does have a, somewhat solid kit, but being based around a category that's bad, which also didn't get any buffs, like major buffs, not great. Omega's gonna find himself at number 9, moving on to number 8. Now, coming in at number 8, we have the Int Exchange Blue Goku and Blue Vegeta, who just, mid. They lead Realm of Gods and Mastered Evolution for 170 and give the full 200% to Pure Saiyans. Super attack effect in the Blue Goku form just stacks attack, and their passive skill doesn't really do anything of real note besides give them more attack and defense with each attack performed, and getting a 50% chance to launch an additional super attack. They can exchange on turn 4, and then you got Vegeta, who gives himself 50% attack and defense on his super attack effect. He Rainbow Orb changes for 3 turns. Restricting it to only 3 turns is terrible design. And then he gets a 25% chance to crit per Rainbow Key Sphere obtained, basically. And then he also gets further buffs with 1 and 3 Rainbow Key Spheres obtained. They had solid links and a decent amount of categories. Essentially, why they find themselves on this list is that they just are not good. They released right around a bunch of other good units, and they, while kind of solid on release, were just never like really all that. Like Vegeta could, have some solid defense and do some solid damage, but he wasn't going to survive a heavy duty super attack or anything because he didn't have any defensive tech. And Blue Goku, he just did damage, and he also wasn't great defensively. They essentially were just very underpowered. And even right away, you could tell they were okay, solid, but that they were going to age like dog water. Exchange, Int Vegeta, and Goku are going to get number 8 on this list. Moving on to number 7. Now, coming in at number 7, we have Int Kid Buu, pre-EZA. Now, Int Kid Buu was the 120% lead for Extreme Intelligence, or Extreme Int. He didn't have any attack and defense buffs on super attack effect, but that didn't really matter at the time so much. He recovered 12% HP on the super attack effect, and his passive skill gave him 100% attack and 70% attack when HP is 30% or above. Int Kid Buu had a really bad link set when he released that is now saved heavily by the link level up update, with links like Majin getting Chi along with infinite regeneration. And while Int Kid Buu was he was solid-ish kinda, he could be run very well with Int Buuhan, and he could do a lot of damage, but he heavily struggled for Ki because he didn't have Ki links. He was probably the worst 120% leader. And honestly, just Int Kid Buu, the Ki struggles just made this guy never really pan out, despite being able to do good damage and having a solid linking partner. Another candidate for this spot could have been Tech Beerus as well, who also was pretty underpowered due to not being, ran very well on the tech team of way back when. But that's Int Kid Buu. He's going to come in at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Now, coming in at number 6, we have pre-EZA Tech Exchange Buu. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know why Buu sucks, right? He's got no defense in any form. His super attack effect doesn't give him defense. He's got no defense anywhere in his passive skill. Once he can exchange on turn 3, he still doesn't have any defense in his super attack effect, but he does get the ability to seal and gains a 30% chance to dodge and a 50% chance to stun for 1 turn. And then once you float him off and get him back on turn 6 or turn 7 if you keep him on rotation, you can transform into Super Buu, who actually on release was pretty good. Very good even. He actually got defense in his super attack effect, kept the ceiling, and got 50% damage reduction, which was enough to be solid. And then about 3 months later, the link level update came out, buffing some of their powerful links like Majin, Infinite Regeneration, Metamorphosis, making them a lot better. Tech Exchange Buu, he's pretty apparent, right? They try to do the AGL Zamasu thing where they just give him 40% damage reduction and call it a day, but it just did not work out for him. He would have 100k defense turn 1 with 40% damage reduction and would just get fodderized by normals. He actually could survive super attacks solidly well, but he just got fodderized by the normals. We all know Tech Exchange Buu sucks. They're going to come in at number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Coming in at number 5 is probably the most fodder Dokkan Fest LR in all of history. Cooler Movie, LR, AGL, Super Saiyan Goku, and Super Saiyan Vegeta. Now, they actually had a pretty solid leader scale for when they came out, joined forces, Movie Heroes. Movie Heroes was a very good category in 2022. They gave themselves 30% attack on defense on both 12 and 18 Ki, and also greatly lowered attack and defense on 18 Ki. They got 20% damage reduction and an additional 20% damage reduction for 3 turns, along with their 150% attack and defense start a turn. They could transform into their shirtless edition after performing 3 or more super attacks and receiving 7 or more attacks in battle, which is just a downright atrociously, disgustingly bad condition. And then once they transform, they had the same super attack effects. For some reason, lose 1 key as a part of their active skill, and now have 30% built-in baseline damage reduction, which is down from the 40% that they have pre-transformation for 3 turns, but hey, go off, I guess. They get a guaranteed additional attack that has a 70% chance of being a super attack, and then they do guaranteed crits when they do their active skill, or when key is 24. Their active skill condition is that it can be activated when facing only 1 enemy after they, exchange, or morale boost, or whatever you want to call it, transform. And it does some damage, plays a nice animation, and then stuns the enemy for 1 turn. They've got solid links and actually almost no categories, which is very odd for a Goku and Vegeta unit, but hey. Essentially, why they find themselves on this list is that they are just a very mid Dokkan Fest LR. They were never really good, like they did solid damage, had some solid defense after they super attacked, but this was the problem with them. They just were mid, and I don't really think anybody would really argue that, right? They've got a badly designed kit. They don't really do anything super special. 30% damage reduction is not going to be enough to tank the super attacks of these huge bosses, which a Dokkan Fest LR of their magnitude should definitely be able to do, and it's just all around bad. They're going to come in at number 5, moving on to number 4. Now, coming in at number 4 is actually 2 units because I could not decide which was worse. They were going to have a mid-off because they both sucked really bad when they came out. That is, of course, pre-EZA Tech Hit and pre-EZA STR Super Boo. Now, Tech Hit, we all know what the thing is, man. He was just part of the worst celebration in global history, probably. Like, man, obviously he just gets no defense, man. So, like, I don't know what we're really thinking. He does some solid damage when, the enemy is stunned, but hey, he is going to get blasted when he gets touched. If you're not in, like, Super Battle Road and the enemy's not stunned, you're dead. Yeah, that's just it. Tech Hit, I believe, was mostly just completely useless in the Legendary Goku event when it came out. I believe it came out like a month and a half-ish after his release on JP, maybe 5 months after his release on Global, and he was just not good. Good luck. STR Super Boo is on here because he just has a terrible transformation condition. Like, he does absolutely nothing in base, right? He lowers attack and defense, oh boy. 80% attack and defense fodder. Keep in mind, he came out in like 2018, so these links are not link level update links, so they all suck. AKA, he struggles for key. But essentially, you had to wait for turn 5 to transform with him, and until he transformed, he was terrible, right? Like, Boo Ultimate Gohan pre-EZA, like, he was good for a minute, right? He was still pretty solid. Like, he could cook. He could wheel and deal. He could dish it out, right? Boo Gotenks has just always been trash. Like, actually fodder bad, like disgustingly bad. And then Boo Piccolo was like, he was a solid option, right? Like, he gave support, he healed, he was all right. But like, I mean, come on now, dude. Like, Super Boo is horrible. Like, actually just fodder. Like, he came out right after LR Tech Goku and Frieza came out, who were like just jaw-droppingly stunning. And then right before AGL Metal Cooler came out, who was also just jaw-droppingly stunning. And like, his animations were bad. Like, there was no reason to run them, right? Like, LR Goku and Frieza had pretty animations. AGL Metal Cooler had just amazing animations, and this guy just sucks. Like, his background while he's absorbing is just black. Like, come on, like, just terrible. Super Boo and Tech Hit are going to take the number 4 spot. Let's move on to the top 3. Now, coming in at number 3 was a unit that everyone demanded. It is, of course, AGL Super Saiyan Trunks. Now, in base, he raises defense for 1 turn on his super attack effect, gets 100% attack and defense start of turn, and 100% attack and defense when attacking. He's got a 70% chance to launch up to 2 additional normals, and then can launch an additional attack with a 70% chance of it being a super when he performs 3 or more attacks during battle. So essentially, he can do 5 attacks, 3 of which being super attacks in his base form. He was solid in base, like relatively okay when he first came out. His active skill can be activated after performing 6 or more attacks in battle, so that's a turn 5 transformation because you cannot get it on turn 3. And then he transforms, and then he can seal and stun the enemy that you have selected. His super attack effect after transforming is a 50% attack and defense buff. He gets a 100% attack and defense buff and a 70% chance to crit start of turn. Gets 100% attack and defense when performing a super attack and does a guaranteed crit once only. Then he gets a 50% attack buff when enemy is attack or defensive down status. And then another 50% attack buff when the enemy is stunned or sealed. And then he gets a high chance to stun the attacked enemy for 2 turns when all allies are Android/Cell Saga category characters in the rotation. He's got some solid links, right? He's got Royal Lineage, Saiyan Lineage, and Shocking Speed. No prepared for battle, but he's still got a plethora of some solid key links, and he's on an okay-ish amount of categories. Now, the reason Trunks is here is because he was basically just obliterated by the Red Zone meta. Like, he was solid when he first came out. Like, he wasn't better than Super Vegeta or AGL Kid Gohan or the GT Dokkan Fests or anything, or the tech androids who came directly after him. But then he just like completely just like fell off a cliff once Red Zone. Like, he sucked instantly. Once like Baby came out, like, he was just trash. His damage was worthless. His defense wasn't good enough. Like, he just, nah. It also doesn't help that he gets worse once he transforms most of the time. And overall, he's just, nah, mid. That's AGL Trunks. He's going to come in at number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Now, coming in at number 2, we have the LR Turles movie, Int Goku. Now, right away, no defense on his 12-key super attack effect. As a 2023 unit, that's always great. He gets 50% attack and defense on his 18-key and does Mega Colossal to all enemies. It's an AoE super attack. Cool. His passive skill gives him 5-key, 150% attack and defense start of turn, 100% attack and defense when performing a super attack if there's 1 enemy, and if there's 2 or more enemies, he gets 5-key and an additional 30% attack and defense for every enemy after the second enemy, capping out at 150% boost. He gets 5-key and 59% attack, no defense, for the rest of battle after performing the finishing blow, and then he gets 100% attack and defense when key is 21 or more. He's got an active skill, which is able to be used once 3 turns have elapsed, and HP is 59% or below, or after turn 5 has elapsed and there's only 1 enemy. He's got an okay-ish link set. He's got like All in the Family, Saiyan Lineage, Prepare for Battle, some solid links. But essentially, why this guy finds himself on here is that he is the epitome of mid. Like, he could do some devastatingly good damage, but he's got no additionals. No crits, no dodge, no damage reduction, no anything. No, like, scouter, obviously taunts weren't out yet, but, like, nothing. Like, come on now. I mean, if he even did get additionals, it wouldn't matter because it wouldn't make his defensive capabilities any better. And, like, I mean, essentially why would you ever run this guy over the AGL Carnival Goku or World Tournament Goku, who came out, like, a month and a half before this guy released? Like, come on now, what are we doing? I mean, this guy is essentially just mid incarnate, and he's gonna come in at number 2. Like, there's nothing like even to say. Like, it's so obvious why this guy's here, right? Let's move on to number 1. And of course, number 1 is the legend, the GOAT, the one above all, the supreme one. It is Physical Raditz. Now, I mean, Raditz is a meme, so like, I'm not even gonna explain most of his kit. The reason he's on here is because he sucks. He does no damage, and he has, like, mid defense. He does Supreme AoE on his super attack effect, so he hits like a feather, a wet paper bag. He can only do good damage against 1 enemy if their HP is 50% or below. Once he gets the 50% chance to crit and the 100% buff to his attack. If he gets touched, you're dead, and he's got a pointless additional 2-key for the rest of battle, I guess. Whoa! He's so amazing, so good. I mean, I guess he's got an active skill, activated when facing 1 enemy after receiving 3 or more attacks in battle. If you have this up, you're probably just dead, right? Like, in a hard fight, like, can he survive 3 or more attacks? Like, come on. And then it does 0 damage because he doesn't stack attack, and then he stuns the enemy for 1 turn, which, I mean, could any relevant fights even be stunned at the time? No, they couldn't. So, hey. Cool, awesome. You can use him in Super Battle Road, where he doesn't do any damage and doesn't, kill a single thing. Awesome. Yeah, Raditz he's just terrible. Like, he's trash. He's fodder, right? Like, come on now. Raditz is the easy number one. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let me know what you thought of my list. If you thought anyone was snubbed off the list, or if you think that the order should have been different. I think I'm going to put in a pinned comment all the units that I considered for this list, or my future list from now on. I think that's going to be a good idea, so you guys know who missed the list, who I was thinking of, you know, that type of beat. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. But just know that if you disagree with me, as always, you're wrong. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks for stopping by.